Waiting to go live. Okay, good to go. So, special course tonight to test my mic. Let's see how well this goes.
I mean, we've been through this plenty of times in this series already. And I know you guys are probably like, Mauler, why be mad? He's just stating his opinion. It's okay. Don't shout at me. He lied. They have a tendency to do that.
He lied. They have a tendency to do that. Quite a bold statement, Mauler. Let's see how you follow this up with.
These reviewers. Either he lied or he's retarded. I'm trying to go for the one that's a little bit more respective of his intelligence.
Well, he's an Aussie. Why not go with retarded? That's a good bet for this. Aussies, down under. We inbreed together.
But honestly, he's welcome to pick which one he wants. Hopefully once I explain this to you guys, you'll be a little bit more mad at him. Closer to me, anyway. He said you rarely have to worry about carrying items. This to me is a strange point, because he doesn't say whether that's a good thing or not.
Yes, I keep on bringing up criticism without qualifiers sort of sucks. Sometimes things are self-evident, and when someone brings up a point without that qualifier, or at least that explanation on why something is bad, I really can't get much out of it.
Or why that would be, he just continues to say, oh, and I'm going to quote him here, and I'm going to try and get his voice down.
Yeah, Mauler's much better at voices than me. Here at the Outback, can't do it.
Here we go. About the only thing you need to do is plug some memory cards into the computer terminals. But these memory cards are literally in the same room as the computer terminal. How's that? What do you guys... Was that good? No? No, I didn't think so either. No, it's fine. So why is what he said retarded? The puzzle he's referring to is the Brandon Wan one we covered a few parts back. You need to find a card in the room you're in. You need to find a card in another room adjacent to the one you're in. You need to upload a piece of information onto one of those cards, and then you need to go to Brandon Wan's room to get a piece of information. Once you have all of these pieces, you can then solve the puzzle that is Brandon Wan.
Mauler's so cold. Brandon Wall is not just a program, it's a person. Or used to be a person. Not really. Just wanted to add that in. So cold, Mauler. Why not? Have a little fun before we get into the real deal.
So basically, the only way to solve that puzzle is not in the same room by a long fucking shot. But it's the one that he's referencing, and he's sort of implying it's the entire game that works that way.
Yes, cherry-picked example for criticism, not for defense in this case.
Now he knows this, he played the fucking game, he wouldn't be able to reference that unless he had done it. The part that really irks me is the puzzles are completely varied. From carrying shit to solving lights to pumping shit to, well, you know what? How about finding each of the pieces to your new suit? You need to solve the structure gel puzzle thing, bypass the spooky sound creature to grab the battery, and solve the sensor problem, and then put them together in a complete package. But Mauler, he forgot. He just forgot about that puzzle. Well, no he fucking didn't. Since he used the footage of that fucking puzzle.
Take note of this, people who are watching this in the future. Look how Mauler is tackling this. People claiming he forgot. And how does he back up that claim with? It's in the footage of the video he was making. Keep that in mind.
In his fucking video, when he said these fucking words. God, you're so useless. Like, how do you do that? How do you actually make your video, edit the pieces together, and not realize that you're essentially saying, there's no good puzzles in this game, they all amount to putting one piece into one slot in the...
Yes, that is rather stupid. Or disingenuous, as ear-scratching, painful as that word has become for me. Let's just say, he wrote a script, he slapped footage on, and then he really didn't think about it, how it would come across to observant viewers, like yourself.
In the same room, and then have footage in the background of you literally carrying a piece of the puzzle from one room to a completely different one, and then knowing that that's one of 3 pieces, and the way you got that piece was solving a fucking structure gel problem. You're insane. Fucking useless reviewers who throw any...
Not gonna say insane, but definitely sloppy, lazy, etc., etc.
all fucking logic and memory
Or disingenuous.
of the media critiquing out the fucking window. Can you guys see why it pisses me off, though? I'm sitting here compiling this information, then some autistic flab generator comes out of nowhere and shits out a 7-minute video and calls it a review. A review. You didn't even have your fucking eyes open when you played this game. So anyway, let's move on. There are a bunch of enemy encounters I want to touch on in Soma that I'll go into some more depth later on. Frictional did a pretty cool thing, and that was having varied enemies, instead of just the one like in Amnesia. And of course we have, you know, the Brute and the Kaink and the Grunt, but 2 of those
Yeah, the cut should be coming soon. That's why you're not hearing me. I should have cut more.
exactly the same, except one of them has double damage and one is invisible while essentially acting with the same sort of attack method. So, you know, when they're approaching this project, it was important for them to try and break free of just being another Amnesia
Oh, I didn't even use the right clip.
New Vegas, meanwhile,
Whoops. Fuck it.
one of them has double damage and one is invisible while essentially acting with the same sort of attack method.
Silly
So,
me.
you know, when they're approaching this project, it was
you want to shoot, the skill checks don't come into the New Vegas, meanwhile, started you off with the Gecko Hunt. Sunny Smiles immediately tutorializes shooting, iron sight aiming, crouching in order to shoot better, sneaking to get close to things that you want to shoot. The skill checks don't come into the game until quite a bit down the line.
More of the false framing of the situation. This one is pretty egregious, though.
No, it's not. You'll see why in just a moment. Keep in mind the words being used here.
So now that he's set up his claim that developers tutorialize the most important aspects first,
Tutorialize. By the way, I do not actually condone this freaking line of logic John is going with through this. It's rather weak, but I do understand where John is going with this particular line of criticism.
he goes on to give this example about New Vegas teaching combat first, and saying skill checks don't come in until quite a bit down the line.
Okay, John is talking about the tutorial section right now. Creetosis is going to sort of slowly change what John's talking about, but not really.
Except that's total bullshit, and he knows it. There are no less than 4 skill checks available in Doc Mitchell's house before you leave it for the first time.
Yes, but is it part of the tutorial? Does it give you a tutorial quest marker for them? No. John is talking about the tutorial.
After talking to Doc at the end of the opening, you could talk to him again for a speech or medicine check to ask for more stim packs.
But do you get the marker for the tutorial? John is talking about tutorialize. This is not part of the tutorial.
These can be missed fairly easy, as it requires talking to him again, but they are there. Now I won't hold that against John if he doesn't know about those.
If he doesn't know about them. But Creetosis, he just forgot. No, he fucking didn't.
What I absolutely will hold against him, however, is the obvious...
Very spiteful, very grudgeful. He will hold against John something that pretty much Creetosis is misrepresenting in John's argument.
repair and science skill checks with the broken submachine gun and the chem set respectively. Not only are these objects hard to miss, but I've got full-on actual proof that he knows about them.
Yes, but are they part of the game designer's tutorial? That's the question that Creed is obfuscating here.
In April of 2016, he uploaded the first episode of his survival mode run.
And the example he pulled it from, freaking Mauler had a point. The dude, the Aussie who was criticizing Soma, who strawmanned Soma's puzzling and got it wrong, misrepresented it, actually put the footage that disproved that there. Creetosis tried to do it with the mall rat thing, but he applied it incorrectly. He twisted the words. Just like he's twisting these skill checks. Yes, John says about skill checks. But in context, John is talking about the skill checks that are required by the tutorial quest. Not just random skill checks, because those come into play in New Vegas right from the start. They're not tutorialized. Sunny Smiles is the tutorial section. It does teach you to shoot. Still think it's a crap argument for John to use, but understand why he did it. It is a tutorial quest. You compare the quest side by side. It does look like New Vegas tutorializes the combat. Probably they wanted to lull that they have the iron sight, which was an improvement over Fallout 3. But then again, Fallout 3 was felt that probably made it feel too much like a shooter, and New Vegas was a little bit more ballsy and took to that next step. But that is just speculation on my behalf.
Of the J. Sawyer Director's Cut mod, and in this episode, he goes to both the submachine gun and the chem set fully aware of what they are and what they do.
And the fact that they are not part of the tutorial.
See, the first area you play in when you get control can actually be very interesting, because what the devs choose to tutorialize first shows us...
See, what even Cree just proved his own point. John just said what the developers chose to tutorialize first shows what they think is important. And I think this is an incorrect argument from John. Pretty much Fallout 3 already tutorialized the basic thing to newcomers, and the people of Fallout New Vegas would have been assumed to play or know more about Fallout and how that sort of system works, or learn as they go. It's not that hard.
What they think the core gameplay elements are. And I believe I should have the skill to... Can I activate this? Yes, I can repair the 9mm machine gun. And let's chemistry set. Yes, let's make some stim packs because I have science 25. Beautiful. Ooh, 4 stim packs homemade. That's interesting. What do those do? The skill...
It's funny how Creed is thinking this is evidence, and when he's misframing John's actual point. So he's taking John out of context here. Hypocritical much, considering how much he accuses John of taking the critics, the few times he references the critics he talks about, out of context. I believe so.
Checks don't come into the game until quite a bit down the line.
Jesus Christ. I literally could not have asked for a better smoking gun.
Yep. Creetosis is a hypocrite and an exaggerator. John did not accuse either Indigo Gaming or H-Bomber Guy of being misleading. He just didn't understand the criticism. That was it. Clear from this that Creetosis is looking to accuse John of something rather from the start. and this is fairly early on in the video. I think this is the 20 to 30 minute marker. I just recorded this from their actual video.
I hope what's happening here is plainly obvious to everyone watching.
Yes, I do hope it's plainly obvious that Creetosis has set up already his misrepresentation and taken John out of context, and I didn't even include this in my main videos. And I really should have edited this better. Maybe it's my video editor that's fucking out. Yeah,
Fine.
You see, first you've got to gain entry to the subtle evil characters for slavers.
I'm tempted.
So first of all, the official...
Alternatively, you'll bribe a group of slavers aren't going to let you in for nothing, no matter how charismatic you are.
Here's the section where Creetosis said, John said there isn't a speech check. That John lied about there not being a speech check.
Very evil characters are allowed in immediately. Alternatively, there's a hard speech check, but it has to come.
Again, hard speech check. Got that clip in my pagan bad faith video. I swear the tactics of these guys, if they cover any of my videos, I don't know how they would do that straight face, so I think they're going to avoid it.
Come with a substantial bribe, a group of...
Except for my part one, which I left them plenty of opportunities. It's the fault of me for trying to be a little stylish with that first video and the second one and even the third one. You can find problems anywhere, especially when you take people's words, intent, and everything out of context.
Slavers aren't going to let you in for nothing, no matter how charismatic you are. Alternatively, you can agree to do some work.
I'm not claiming I left all of Creed's arguments in context. Some of his context, I'll say the same thing about him. They criticized me for actually cutting out the fact where Creetosis, after Strawman and John with the mole rats thing, that I cut out the context that Creetosis added in an event it for Fallout 3 where he said Megaton would have worked much better if there was farm and all that crap, but I argue Megaton does not need that. They're a trading town. Why would they need to grow their own food? Many places who are major trading centers, major export centers, don't grow their own food. Major ports. Yeah, I know it's a video game. That makes it even more of a point. That's all I'll say on that here. Is when Creetosis just invents stuff and says it's a problem with the game, which he does a lot despite his argumentation, you need to say why something he invents that the food chain, which I completely disagree with Mr. Caption's no food chain theory, which I've stated several times and even can argue against. That's one point I am confident on. Been playing Fallout 3 recently, and yes, there are plants and they are live. Dead plants would have decomposed even with the radiation slowing down the decomposition of the plant life. They would be dead and gone if they weren't growing in new.
Work for them, enslaving one of 4 targets they highlight for you. Now, if you're a morally good character with low charisma, this poses an interesting question. Is it right to enslave one person in an attempt to free multiple child slaves? And if so, who'd you pick? 3 are civilians, 1 a doctor in fact, but the 4th one initially seems like an obvious choice. Arkansas.
This is an interesting setup John has going here. I mean, yeah, he is creating a line of logic, which it's a very good story, and he tells it well, as any Let's Player should be able to. As a video essayist, he makes some poor decisions, but I can understand where those decisions come from. But we're going to see where Creed jumps on him here.
Who shoots at you as you enter Minefield, but things still get a little bit uncomfortable once you get the collar around his neck.
Don't kill me, please. I'm going.
You see, the Fallout 3 official game guide confirms that he only shot at you because he thought you were...
Keep that in mind. The game guide confirms. John is making an argument that there is context clues to support that there's something deeper going on with this character of Arkansas. Take it however you want. Dismiss it. Let's see how Creetosis combats this.
a slaver. He's actually a vigilante who lays traps for slavers, and you just enslaved him, and they're gonna do horrible things.
That makes perfect logical sense. You could infer something similar to that without outside material, but you would be questioning, and the game definitely could have. Like, say you free Arkansas and talk to him later, that would have been a much better development. Maybe actually I should do that in one of my run-throughs just to test if it's truly a weakness. Don't know until I know if I try it. Can I save him? I'll give it a go in the game and test that to a theory. Thank you, Creed, for giving me this point to test out. At very worst, it's sort of inference, background storytelling. But if they did go through with it, which I sort of doubt.
To him now.
I'm tempted not to sell him, just so we can torment him. Use him for target.
Yes, it's obviously from that piece of dialogue that Arkansas has been giving these slavers trouble.
Practice or something.
Well, not obvious, but, you know, it is context clues to what the game guide has supported.
So first of all, the official game guide is outside information and completely irrelevant.
No, the game guide confirms something that's told through dialogue in the game. Theory-based video game stuff has been becoming popular, and this might be why Fallout 3 did this sort of thing, or maybe they wanted to go with the sort of show don't tell method, and they have outside material to support people's theories about this. Frankly, I don't know why Creed thinks his rules should apply to all people. John explained his theories using outside material to support evidence that is found in the game.
This really shouldn't have to be said, but outside material does not make up for information not present in the game.
That information is present in the game, it's just not complete. Show, don't tell sometimes is a good idea, especially for background characters and for the mysterious allure of the DC wasteland.
When watching a movie or playing a game, you shouldn't need additional fucking reading material for anything to make sense.
Again, you don't. Why are you making this argument? You know how messed up is it? Or are you just that freaking retarded? You just trying to nail John on every point you think you can, and you're sort of stealing from other people's playbook, in my opinion. The Mr. Caption argument sort of supports that theory of mine. Just a theory, a game theory.
This isn't even a novelization to explain away plot holes, like with the shitty Disney Star Wars movie.
And this is something Creed does a lot. He relates other media that has been criticized to criticize Fallout 3 with. Frankly, that's a disingenuous rallying tactic that Creetosis loves to pull off. You'll see another contentious thing later.
It's literally just a game guide that tells you how to complete quests and where interesting locations are.
And also his, frankly, sad dismissal and undermining of every last thing. NPCs, game guide, all materials. I completely understand having a jaded and distorted view of Bethesda from this modern day perspective. Even back in this day, they started with their creep. But to judge this harshly, you need to have some serious beef with Bethesda, which is obvious throughout almost all of Creetosis' videos on the subject matter.
If Bethesda did not put in the effort to explain Arkansas's backstory into the game, that is the fault of the game, and no,
that's the fault of someone not wanting to be spoon-fed every little point. John brought up a little detail that some people might have missed and other more observant people might have been curious about, and that's his point. That's why he's talking about the deepness of this. But Creetosis isn't very deep from what I can tell from his commentary on this video, at least. Maybe he gets a little deeper later. I don't think so. I hope he grows and learns to go deeper. You need to learn in life. And denying everyone's opinions isn't the way to do that. Echo chambers are good for fostering freaking cult-like mentalities.
amount of outside information can fix that. Secondly, that hard moral choice for good characters with low charisma and speech kind of falls flat when you realize you could just save scum until you get the result.
Ah, yes, the beginning of the Creetosis is a metagamer. Clear. It's very clear from this section. There's other sections, but he definitely does display some metagaming tactics. Metagamers, for anyone not curious, is people who use outside information found outside the game to sort of game the game, so to speak. A metagamer isn't really looked fondly over in the D&D and tabletop role players. They tend to be min-max players who try to break the game in any way they can. And I'm letting you know this now because he exhibits through his footage and his words that he is a metagamer who doesn't give a crap about the people in this game. None of the character, story, so he demeans it every chance he gets. And anyone who would defend this or care about any of the Bethesda properties. Very jaded person, at least when Bethesda comes to it.
Result you want, or you can come back later after you've gained a few levels.
Once you do get inside though, it's a slave market, so naturally you can just buy the kids for 2,000 caps, which is a lot of money in Fallout 3, as there's less cash sloshing around than in New Vegas. Alternatively, if you just fancy doing a breakout, there are a few science and repair checks that follow, plus some amusing ways to distract the guard, like paying one of the prostitutes to keep him busy. But the really interesting stuff happens once you're actually ready to break the kids out and let them make a quiet run for the drainage pipe that they can squeeze through. You see, two of the children are happy to go straight away. Another, Penny, refuses to go until her friend Rory is rescued from solitary, except the quest is effectively already complete. Those first two kids can fairly easily be convinced to abandon Penny, and with them rescued you can access the lamplight. Job done. There is literally no in-game benefit to also rescuing Penny. But it gets more murky yet, because Rory's an adult and you can't sneak him out the same way as the kids.
Sorry, cat trouble. They love the microphone. At least the affectionate one.
He needs to escape through town, and attempting to get through will turn the whole town against both you.
Here I have to criticize John. He probably should have mentioned there is a speech check for Penny also. Not much. It still doesn't change the fact that you talk to Penny. She says her friend, yada, 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 and you have to make the decision. Do you talk her down or do you try to save this dude? You don't even know it's a dude. I think he's framed as sort of a play thing. Like a teddy bear.
You and him. Plus, he almost never survives it regardless. Now, you can set him free and tell him he's on his own. He'll get himself shot dead in seconds and Penny will leave, so you've basically led a man to his death in order to rescue a child. It's a child's...
See, this is also another reason I skipped this. This is sort of, it's not metagaming, it's meta-narrative that John gets into. You won't know until after the fact. I mean, it does create an interesting dynamic. Should have you known from the context that just freeing him, and most likely if you don't protect him from the slavers, he's going to die. As with John, there's always this weird gray area that his lack of details and his skirting over harder subject matters tends to leave the whole thing in a gray area. It's harder to actually condemn him. You can't actually say it's a mistake just because the essayist style is so weak and just about presenting evidence and not really going deep into it. John's actually much better than a lot of essayists, but still a lot of weak points of the video essayist style that John is trying to compete with here. Is it John's fault or the genre? I think it's more the genre in this case, especially since this, I believe, is the first video essay that John has attempted, and I think he patterned it off of H-Bomber Guy, but don't hold me to that theory of mine.
Freedom worth a man's life, and do you have the right to make that decision?
So the big moral quandary here seems to revolve around Rory. Now there's a part to this that John is quite conveniently leaving out of his argument here.
Quite convenient. Maybe he didn't think it was necessary. You shouldn't actually jump to the worst case scenario right from the start. But if Creed was arguing in bad faith, as I believe he is doing for most of this video, then yes, of course he would jump on that as quickly as possible. But again, just a theory. Would have to actually see him discuss with someone to know if he does argue in bad faith instead of his circle jerk podcast, which I can barely tolerate for more than 15 minutes before I have to shut it off.
Because it would undercut it somewhat, and that's the fact that Penny could still be convinced to leave without him.
Yeah, but that does not change the moral question. As I said, I do criticize John a bit for it, but gray area again. You still have the moral question, do you save the guy? And John sort of leaves this option out. So, gray area here. This is completely understandable why Creetosis brought this up. I'm fine with him bringing this up. John might have thought it was not necessary and it would undermine his point about a moral gray choice. But, sad. Real tough overall.
So much for leading a man to his death to save a child, eh?
Yeah, I will have to agree with Creetosis on that. It's not necessary, but for John's framing, and you do not know that freeing the guy will kill him. So it's really a flaw in John's argumentation to bring up that point. He should have brought up that fact afterwards. And there's also, of course, the excuse of role-playing options. Do you want to be the guy who tries to free the guy and try to save him? Or do you want to be like, yeah, I freed your buddy, but yeah, he died. Let that be a lesson, Penny. Learn. Helping people and getting people to do what you want is not always the good choice, young lady.
The way John presents it makes it sound as though it's necessary to free Rory in order...
Yeah, not really, but sort of. Okay, he's setting up the moral question. It's the choice. As I said, criticize John for not bringing up Penny and working that into it. Would have taken just a couple seconds. You can convince Penny, but she has a strong emotional attachment to another slave. You have to morally decide whether or not to help Penny and not knowing if you can help her, some crap like that.
to get Penny to leave. It gets worse yet, however. If you do free Rory, you can actually guarantee his freedom quite easily. Just tell him he's on his own, and immediately wait for 1 in-game hour using the rest function.
More metagaming. Way to go, Creetosis. Metagamer, not confirmed. What did you say? 3 times as a pattern? I'm sure it's come up before, and I'm sure it'll come up very soon. But I will not confirm that. But it does add to my metagaming. Oh, yeah, he does. I don't know if it's included. I think it's coming up soon also.
Dude literally just teleports out. Kinda ruins that moral question just a bit, doesn't it?
When you're metagaming, that ruins a lot about the game. Okay, metagaming tactics break games. You want an unbreakable game that can't sort of break under your underhanded, cheap tactics that you talk about in the game, and I suspect you of in argumentation because you're disingenuous, dishonest fuck. I can say that now. I'm done with my series, so fuck off, Creetosis. You projecting that on all the people who argue with you in the comments is fucking ridiculous.
More so if you decide to wipe out the slavers before opening the box, because oftentimes he just randomly dies anyways because of reasons, I guess.
Well, you don't know the reason. Why bring it? You should bring it up. Then you put the negative spin on it. Yay, you!
The situation is further contrived because the game won't allow you to buy Rory either.
Well, maybe he's in the box for a good reason. Maybe they don't let all the slaves get... Maybe there's a good reason you can't buy all the slaves. I don't know. Just crazy. You're not given a reason why it's bad that he is in the box. He's either being punished or held for some reason. Maybe he's even sick. Maybe that's why he dies. Fallout 3 has a random chance. He's stuck in a box, in a hot box. He could have died. It could have been part of that randomness that Fallout 3 actually has that isn't found in any of the other Fallout. Well, I can't say Fallout 1 or 2, but as much as you hate some of the Bethesda, and so do I, like the Radiant AI system, it does put a certain randomness that John lays out in his video later on.
The problem is the fact that this character isn't actually a character. He's the epitome of a lazy plot device.
And John spins up... And Creetosis spins up his own narrative here, and it's very dismissive of the game.
With literally no actual use or function.
Oh, yeah, no use or function, because he's done his job. He wants out, okay? He goes back to Moriarty's, and look at this. He must have some mods or some hacks involved, because you'll see in a moment. He gets his chance to kill everything.
He exists solely to be a roadblock for freeing Penny, and nothing more.
And what's the problem with that? He's not a roadblock, as you pointed out yourself. He's just another option for getting Penny out. And a moral question. But I don't know if you have any morals, Creetosis. This video doesn't show this of you. I think you're amoral when it comes to Bethesda products. Maybe in total. But definitely a Bethesda hater psychopath because he has the mods. You see the 2 children. Watch what happens next.
Bethesda put basically no effort into this character.
There's down Penny.
Which is why he dies so easily. Because they
there's
don't
the
have
other
anything
child.
for him to do.
Well, that completely negates the no killing children. Sorry, I want to say something about maybe Obsidian Interplay fans really did have a deep-seated desire to kill children. but he just goes on a rampage, killing everything. All Bethesda must die.
He doesn't actually do anything if he survives, and as a result, there's no reason that.
Why should he do anything? He survived. If he gets out of freaking a slaver camp, he's probably going to do everything he can to not go back one. Fucking crawl in a hole and be like, no way, I ain't going back out in that wasteland. I don't care if I starve. I'll try to do some job. Well,
Actually care about saving him or making sure he survives.
okay. Undermining the characters just because he has one purpose and then he lives his life. Would he say the same for any of the traders? They don't do anything but trade. That's their one purpose. That's horrible. They don't eat or drink or have anything to do with anything. Rah, rah, rah. I'm Creetosis. I say all this. I straw manner of Fallout. Rah.
Which makes matters worse, as the whole point of freeing him should be for him to survive. If she cares about him so much that she won't leave without him, it kinda defeats the purpose if he just dies immediately, doesn't it? Honestly, the game basically treats him like a joke.
No, you're treating everyone like a joke, like a piece of meat. And you talking about morals after just murdering everyone is just so freaking icing on the cake.
He will thank you for freeing him and says he owes you, then runs away and dies immediately. If he does survive, he just goes to Moriarty's and he has one single line of dialogue, and hilariously, if Megaton is destroyed, he'll just teleport inside anyways.
Okay. Yeah, Bethesda's buggy. I'm not going to deny that. That's something Bethesda's notorious for. But there is a reason for that. It's because there are freaking mad people who try to pull off way more than they are actually capable of. They're very ambitious. They have close to the talent to most of the way pull it off. But their ambition is generally their downfall. And their stupidity, corporate stupidity, has just gotten worse and worse over the years. They really need to rein back their PR people, especially Todd Howard. Dude just needs to quit. Just like a lot of these freaking CEOs. But it's a craze!
I expect this kind of low-effort garbage from a poor...
What, Hello Games? Was that the person who did No Man's Sky? That was actually the bigger... sort of misleading of a director. Also, sort of, this is Bethesda started the trend with Todd Howard. He really is a bad example who just led the marketing. Oh, I really have a bone to pick with marketing.
Poorly made mod, not the actual developers of the game.
Oh, grow up. Sheesh, you having such high standards for this freaking thing. They tried to keep it open source. Of course, they're fucking assholes, and they sort of clamped down on that later with Fallout 4, but genuinely, with the New Vegas, Fallout 3, they were genuinely trying to be friendly, and they kept their software friendly for modders. And they were rather amateurish back in the day. I'm not going to deny that. They had high hopes.
This ties back into what I was saying earlier, too.
Maybe that's what's with the vitriol? The hatred. Is because Bethesda used to seem like a cool game company. They seemed friendly. Of course, they bolstered their positions and talked a lot of shit like all the freaking little game developers have gone through, hyping up their games, trying to do more than they can actually accomplish in the time frame. But still, they had high hopes and things have to be cut. A simple realism. And then they give us Fallout 76. I understand the intent with it, but they really should have put, if they wanted to have the barren world, month at most that they should have kept it that way. Probably even 2 weeks would have been better before they started doing patches to bring in and evolve the world. And that was along with all the other bullshit around 76. I do not blame the community for being pissed at Bethesda. But still, I'm trying to keep this in the time frame it is. All these freaking people trying to talk about immersion. It really wasn't a strong suit of the original Fallout games. It wasn't. Fallout 3 sort of pushed in that direction, but wasn't quite there yet. This is why Indigo Gaming's talking about immersion. I can't imagine the immersion was great with Fallout 1, 2, Tactics, or Brotherhood of Steel. And that's something Indigo Gaming sort of brushed over. Fallout Tactics and of Tactics Brotherhood of Steel. He just glossed over any criticism for them. And that seemed a little misleading when you're talking about Fallout franchise and how it's changed over the years. But that's an aside.
This is exactly the same shit as Garza. Bethesda makes these characters so shallow that a goddamn plate has...
Oh, I swear, it's such a one note. I swear, I can almost predict if there's anything you don't steal, man, or give sufficient evidence, Creetosis will just be like, Bethesda did a crap job with it. What about with this? Bethesda did a good crap job. What about this, and this? That really supports that Bethesda put their heart and soul in it. Oh, well, that's a cherry-picked example. Oh, what about this is this? Oh, that's not as good as what you're saying. There's not enough choices. The number argument, the numerical, he loves to jump back. Not enough choices, not enough quest. Yeah, I get it. You want choices. Every gamer wants a choice. No one wants to be railroaded. Fallout 3 railroads you at least 3 times. Once in the beginning, you're a baby. You get held in the vault. Once when you go into your dad, you're at the control of the freaking mad scientist, lowly old man in the child's body. You're sort of railroaded there, but that is actually, I think that's a good idea there. Maybe another time when you're stuck in the enclave, not really railroaded, but you have to follow a certain path. I had fun exploring, not following the thing, and finally at the end.
more depth than they do, and as a result, these characters don't have the impact they should, considering the level of importance the game is giving them.
Okay, what impact should they have? You're not explaining the impact they should. What impact should this guy who is trapped in a freaking box in the middle of a slaver camp have later on? What can they do with him? What does he need to do beyond being this point? Tell me. You're just simply saying don't have the impact.
Oh no, this fucking useless Randy died. How tragic. You know, it really goes a long way to making the world feel shallow when it's built out of these throwaway characters.
Oh. Yeah. Generic insult 123. Call every character insulted. You know, frankly, if Creetosis actually showed some respect to some characters, I wouldn't think he's such a freaking either delusional hater of all things Bethesda or just a negative person in general. And I'm going to leave his negativity towards Bethesda because I know his his hate boner for Bethesda is so hard it definitely clouds his judgment when it comes to this, and it's not something he should actually be reviewing. His bias is just so off the scale. It's not freaking funny. And it's obvious.
Or, of course, you could just gun down the entire town to make sure he gets free, but then is mass murder okay if the targets are slavers?
I'm sorry, but you can't make this into a morally gray issue. We're not talking about a character who may...
Here he goes with another reference of trying to pull in people with pop culture references to be all cool and hip and sort of try to make a argument, and probably sort of from Mauler's community, and probably a lot of the Gary and Critical Drinker, all the comic skate guys, which he definitely seems to be in support, and just cursory research tells me he retweets a lot of those folks. On his limited Twitter.
Made a stupid decision as a result of a series of bad decisions, but at heart is a decent person. We're talking about the scum of the earth, who run the entire slave trade in the capital Wasteland. Eliminating these people will only result in a net positive.
And this is where Creetosis' shallowness actually really shows through. Yeah, they're assholes, they're scummy, but they're part of the DC Wasteland's economy. This is why the traders actually go past Paradise Falls. As much as no one wants to admit it, much as no one wants to be part of the slave trade, slavery is a thing. It's something known. You don't get caught. Survival of the fittest. That is the DC's wasteland. And the slavers live by this. They don't shoot you as soon as you go in there. They are like any other town. You break their laws, they try to kill you. Creetosis and most modern day people do not like this idea. This is why Creetosis can get away with this bullshit argumentation. Paradise Falls, no matter, it's an evil town. Just like the leader of Tenpenny Tower is an evil person. Evil people exist in this world. You can, evil, practically pure evil people. And there is a certain amount of gray. What evil things need to be committed? Yes, Tenpenny, the dude just wanted to see Megaton blown up, is actually seems like a very evil thing, but someone at the end of their lifespan and the DC wasteland would probably take solace in the fact when he dies, that town of goody two-shoes who built up a life here, why, I've been rotting away in my old age in this tower, been staring at it for so long, it's ugly. I want it destroyed. Mental illness is not a factor in this, and there is a gray area. Obviously, rich people, and Bethesda was probably just trying to make a statement that a rich guy in the tower in the sky just wanted to see the nuke go off before he died. His dying wish. Rich people do crazy things with their money. And that is... it's not the greatest defense for the existence of the bomb and the decision to knock it off, but it's not so stupidly evil as he argues, just like he doesn't understand that the Paradise Falls is a town that is part of the DC's Wastelanders community. Dislike it, call it evil all you want, it is. They bring in caps. They explain, I don't know how well-founded it is, but the slaves that they bring in, they ship to the pits. I don't know if that's an early or later addition to the game. I'm not going to assume that the DLCs weren't planned from the start and Bethesda wanted to work them in. Maybe even Broken Steel was something they wanted to complete. I believe it was a free DLC when I played it back in the day. I think I got it for free when I bought the game, but I also had the Game of the Year edition. No clue about that. A little shady to put a much better ending, which it is as far as I remember, and I'm replaying, so who knows about that. Much better going to DC and doing cool stuff.
Wasteland becoming a safer place overall. There is no downside to it.
Yes, there is. You lose out on some caps. If I'm led to believe, it's caps from the Pit, which is a major industrial center, yada, yada, yada. I can't confirm this is in the base game, yada yada. But I don't care about this. At this late stage in the game, and considering when most people played this and criticizing it, it's at least 5 years out. Actually, I think 7 years out from the game when I played it. I heard the criticism in the beginning. My criticism was definitely with the ending, and I'm not going to get into that now, but yeah, Creetosis's idea of what's deep, he doesn't explain, at least in this section, and his idea of ethics and morals are really questionable and dubious at most, and that really shows here and probably other places that I haven't even caught. I caught him out in a lie with the pagan video that I held. Who cares? Moving on.
If killing one scumfuck slaver is fine, why would killing all of them be bad? This isn't like the foot soldiers of the NCR.
Without commenting, they fucking were. As if quickly mentioned without commenting, ending cutscene. A cutscene in which you are punished or rewarded narrative.
So I climbed into the cab and then I settled down inside. I've been in.
This was one place I wanted to criticize
two
Mauler
equally
for.
innocent people.
Not here. I agree with this criticism of this choice.
If you decide to save either of the two, Ethan laments about how awful it is that the Bakers were victimized by this horrible monster, Evelyn, without commenting on the irony that she was a victim as well. Created
Totally agree with that. She, childlike innocence, advanced aging. She didn't know what she was doing. The company was the evil one, like most of the Resident Evil.
in a lab with the need for a family and the power for mass destruction which led to all of this horror. Something that would have been a lot more meaningful, but no, they decided to quickly mention that the Bakers were victims too, guys. I have seen so many fucking reviews that comment on...
Yes, this reminds me of my super mutant interpretation. Yes, the people who were turned into super mutants were victims. Then they got turned into monsters. Same with the Bakers. After they're too far gone, they're gone.
On this as some sort of brilliantly tragic storytelling that the Bakers were actually victims. Like, obviously they fucking were. As if they were people in the...
See, Mauler agrees with me on this point. Yes, they were victims, but they were also monsters in the end. And I don't think my Mauler criticism pops up in this. At least in this clip. My criticism against Mauler is when he sometimes gets the idea, like he talks about the weird dream sequence.
The world who could regenerate their limbs and walk on walls while spewing nests of flies from their vagina. The game once again did not earn this kind of meaningful conclusion, at the very least not until the fucking DLC. I mean, did we...
Yeah, I'm not gonna argue. Okay, it's still... See, this is a sort of weird payoff. He undermines the sort of dream sequence because he really assumes too much about Mia's power base and doesn't give the backup evidence to say how Mia's powers work. Not Mia, whatever the little Evelyn, the little child biomutant thing, and it's shoddy writing. Muller's in his right to assume certain abilities from the little monstrous child, but he assumes too much in certain sections of that. But I'm not going to criticize this. This isn't what it's for. It was for what I just said.
Forget about the hordes of people who've actually died as well. Are they not fucking victims? Furthermore, if you did choose Mia, she and Ethan are cleared of all issues from any kind of infection and go on home to a wonderful life. If you choose...
Yeah, definitely way too, but they needed to set up the sequel. I haven't even played Village yet. I mean, just the idea of Village just seems so stupid. There's some things I just can't do in the initial premise, like there was that movie, The Tomorrow World. I'm a sci-fi fan, and frankly, the scientific implication of Tomorrow World just hurts my head so much. I'm like, I can't watch it. Just the contradiction right from the start. At least that Looper, that Rian Johnson movie, which I actually enjoyed the first time I watched. I tried watching it again recently, and I'm like, oh, this ending hurts my head so much. how would the child... It breaks so many rules. It just hurts my head by the end. I'm like, okay, this ending is so fucking contrived and so fucking convoluted and so brain breaking. I've been getting worse as I'm getting older, noticing more things in media. I've been more jaded than Mauler for more years than him, but I've just been almost nihilistic or absurdism, because that's sort of like nihilism, but you find joy in the stupidity of the world around me. And this is one of the ways I've coped with how bad media has been gotten, and why I haven't really criticized media much, because I assumed it was always being that way. There's some hope. I have some hope, finally. Not very much, and I want to speak out about the areas. Freaking Michael Flanagan, bright, shining beacon coming from the stars. And Mauler should really make his freaking Hell House or even Midnight Mass video, but no, he's fallen into the trap, fallen into the pit, which will keep him in eternal Disney criticism instead of promoting something that people need to know about. But his fan base is just as toxic. His fan base probably hasn't gone completely to the dark side like Creetosis, but I know they've infected. That's what led me to him as Fallout critics. Ugh.
Zoe, she fucking dies. She just dies. And Mia gets teleported in to finish the story regardless, but then also dies. I had a big old rant about choice in video games in my past dissection, and my god, this is fucking bad. To my fucking horror, no reviewers talked about this heinous shit. Some of the worst...
Yep, I really don't think anyone who's overlooked this by the shiny new gleam and style Resident Evil 7. Excellent freaking game from the start. Filled with problems. It was, in my opinion, better than Outlast, but I also have that Resident Evil nostalgia. But at least if someone's like, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, I can completely concur that this is bad. It doesn't ruin the game. The beginning is fairly solid with a few problems here and there, like what Mauler points out, and later on.
Writing and cover-up nonsense and storytelling I've seen for a long-ass fucking time. And I'm being hyperbolic. Some people did mention it briefly, but nothing significant. Nothing as what it deserves to be labeled as. I'll go over it a bit more in character, but for now I want to stress that choosing to save one innocent over another based on barely any reasoning, and then being punished for one and rewarded for the other as arbitrarily as they performed it in this game, is goddamn awful. Wait a minute.
Yeah, I'll concur with that. It's pretty crappy, both emotionally and writing-wise. Game design-wise, as far as I know. I'm stronger on the writing side than game design. I'm getting more into it through my research. You know, plug up those holes, try to fill in that nostalgia. So, if Creetosis actually said stuff that I could actually confirm, but no. His crap is just crap. He brings up some good points, but the bad outweighs the good by a metric ton. Metric bullshit ton.
To make the player feel shitty for no reason. And for those saying, but Mulesley, why would you pick Zoe over Mia? Well, when I originally streamed this game, I made it clear that I didn't like Mia.
See, I can't find much wrong about Mauler's content, so seeing that I find so much wrong with Creetosis shows they're nothing alike in argumentation.
Like in New Vegas and Fallout 2 respectively.
Or that Mauler's bias matches mine more closely, except for he's never explained his problems with Fallout 3 and why he agreed with H-Bomber Guy. I think, frankly, if he went into it with a critical lens, he would be able to articulate why H-Bomber Guy's video was so full of shit better than I could. Communication isn't my strongest suit. I get by with a little brass and tack, but who knows?
All of them show an inkling of remorse or regret, or a desire to change, and none of them try to surrender if you do attempt to wipe out Paradise Falls. Hell, even Caesar's
Oh,
Legion,
new comment.
which is known for its lack of proper development among the New Vegas factions,
Oh,
had the
shit.
excuse of its members being raised and assimilated into
Someone
Caesar's
who's
ideology
here.
from birth.
Sorry.
We don't even seem to
Haven't been paying
realize
attention to my
is that
chat.
the line of logic here can be applied elsewhere. Is
Oh,
mass
yes.
murder okay if the targets are raiders?
Oh, sorry. Didn't think anyone would catch me this morning. Don't know if you're still watching. Even my critics, I'm fine. Yeah, slavers aren't morally gray because they help the economy. They are part of the Fallout 3 ecosystem. They're part of the economy. Killing them off would be detrimental to the economy. Sorry, I didn't actually see it. Okay, metagaming is an issue. Single player, same with cheating, aren't you? Okay, yeah, sorry. I didn't have the chat up. Didn't think anyone would pop up this early in the morning. Random stream to test my mic. Does if you start. Yeah, definitely buggy with that. Yeah, metagaming isn't an issue in a single player game. Same cheats. If you're not ruining fun for anyone else. See, that's getting into the ethics issue. Ethics is definitely something I'm not seeing a lot of. Yes, I'm saying the slavers is morally gray because that would hurt the economy of Fallout 3's capital wasteland as it is. It wouldn't be that bad to kill them all off. It would definitely hurt if things don't improve. It definitely would decay if you think about it logically, it would decay the actual thing. The metagaming thing is just, metagaming is really frowned upon in tabletop role-playing game. Anyone who's played in the game would know that. And I do take issue with using that. And ethics-wise, I don't even know what to say. I'm not seeing much. I mean, if you want to make an argument for why Creetosis ethics is correct, I just think I understand his complete hatred of Bethesda in this day and age, but they've done several bad things, but I'm talking purely game-wise and how the mechanics work. He assumes the worst. But maybe I have a bias. Well, everyone has a bias.
Super mutants? Is mass murder
I
okay
will
if the
admit I
targets
have
are
a
the
bias.
Enclave? Well shit, I guess the entire game gets a gold star for gray morality.
I try to see beyond my bias, though. I don't know how good of a job I do.
Because you can constantly engage in mass murder of various hostile and evil groups. And I guess every game with tons of killing all get a gold star too.
I should remind you at this point that
Yeah, every game with gold. He's conflating two different issues. John is definitely a little off on this. He definitely... Video game SAS tends to hype stuff up. I'm not going to deny that. But I do see the points he's making in this. And
that Fallout 3 is frequently criticised for poor story and writing when it has quests like that.
This is what we call cherry picking. He picks out one quest with somewhat decent choice, and he oversells the fuck out of it to sound better and more complex than it is. As if this quest alone single-handedly debunks the criticism that Fallout 3 has poor writing. A drop of water in an ocean of piss changes nothing. Thing is, I can pull far many more cards in my favor for this point.
And this is where I disagree. I don't cut him off. I'm going to cut him off at this first example because I disagree with it. Let's see what anyone will think about this. Agatha's Song.
And you can. Agatha's Song is a quest about getting an item from a dungeon. The story is, her aunt lived in a vault, and Agatha just assumes they all died for some reason, even though she has no way of knowing this. Riley's Rangers.
And that's where it cuts, but yeah, I really believe it's underselling Agatha's Song. Agatha's Song, you come across a shack with a poor old widow woman who basically... she probably sleeps with some of the passing by traders, but that's just sort of an implication. But yeah, she takes care. she sells her music, so to speak, over the radio waves. And that's how she makes her living. Creed is absolutely right that, well, not absolutely right. Creed is definitely leaving out the fact that if you don't know where the vault is, you have to go to Vault Tech and fight a whole bunch of robots to sort of get into Vault Tech security. That is if you take on Agatha's song before you get into the Citadel, where they might have a map. I don't know. I would need to test it out to double check that. But yeah, he's definitely underselling Agatha's song, in my personal opinion. Not even my personal opinion. He's underselling it. He's leaving out details. He's leaving out context. I don't even know how to say how wrong this is. This is wrong on a couple different levels, and mostly he's leaving out the spirit, the emotional aspect of it. The pity story. This old woman lost her husband. She plays the violin. This is why for my videos, he seems to have a problem with certain NPCs. Agatha almost seems to be one. So is the Nuka-Cola bitch, as he calls her. I don't know why it's such a hard-on against, whatever that chick's name. Not my favorite either. You know, the sort of geek who exists in this hypothetical future. Maybe her existence in Fallout 4 pissed her off. I can't understand his hatred for the Nuka-Cola bitch. It's a funny name, but his genuine hatred for her sort of stands out a little bit weirdly in the ether of existence. He definitely has no emotional connection, just like Mr. Caption couldn't quite get it. But that's not a fault with the game. You could say it's a fault with Bethesda for being so crappy in the future, but of course, Creetosis, who knows what sort of emotional connection you need to actually connect to a media to get any emotional. I believe Fallout 3, not the greatest job, but some points like Agatha's song, I can see a case for that being more sympathetic, and he's definitely underselling it because he's not. I would have to go into the whole diatribe with laying out the details for that. I don't care to do that now. Let's move on.
It's a quest about doing a dungeon.
Oh yeah, I skip it. Oh, there's problems with this format. Should just did it my normal way.
My favorite. One antidepressant.
Put together some
Sometimes
Mauler
you're seeing
clips.
it backwards.
Okay, so I did a little bit of trickery.
Resistant depression.
Fire anywhere near it. Too much time is spent walking back and forth through areas you've already visited, and the world never really changes, so you're seeing the same area over and over, except sometimes you're seeing it backwards.
Okay, so I did a little bit of trickery there. Harris didn't actually have the footage of Dark Souls 2 for that part of his video originally.
Good job, Mauler. Excellent. Trickery is a great thing to do. But you can't do too much. At least you're being honest with it afterwards. But his point is wouldn't say absolutely dead on, but it's pretty solid. I can't find much criticism with Mauler's content overall, and I've looked, because you really want to test out who you respect, and I'm coming to respect at least Mauler's old content. It was more fun and fresh. He's way too stiff and corporatized nowadays, but I understand, making a business on YouTube.
It was Dark Souls 1. But could you tell the difference? Of course you couldn't, because what he said about Dark Souls 1 as a criticism is actually more applicable to Dark Souls 2, in that the game wastes huge amounts of your time. But once again, this is in defense of Dark Souls 2, so he cannot allow a principle he holds to get in the way when trying to make Dark Souls 2 far better than it is. This is some simple defense tactics 101. If you humble yourself...
See, I don't like some of his language, because obviously Creed has co-opted a lot of this language. I don't know if he got it directly from Mauler, or if he adopted it from someone else who follows Mauler's line of camp, but some of this language is... I understand his annoyance at H. Palmer guy. I have my own issues with the man, but some of his language usage... Um, it's coming to bite me in the ass with this Creetosis, and it's annoying how badly Creetosis seems to abuse it.
About defending yourself or a product that you love and admit that it has flaws in certain positions. That's great. It adds to your honesty, your image. It makes you look grounded, someone that can be trusted. However,
Absolutely. When you admit flaws about what you love, it does actually add to it.
However, if you start talking about another product and how it does something worse when in fact it does it better, cracks are going to start to form. But I think at this point we're shattered.
There's a lot of
Yeah, this clip is just for this point.
That exists. It isn't as simple as both things did X, but one got criticized for it, because the deeper context surrounding these events are what matters. Now back to my rain criticism. Why is this an issue for Fallout 3 and not why this is a totally valid position to hold?
Game with some crazy rules, like it's totally okay to
from all evils, rather than a group that actually has any kind of goals.
You see, disliking Fallout 3 is a game with some crazy rules. Like, it's totally okay to criticize Fallout 3 for doing something that Fallout New Vegas did, and then just politely pretend New Vegas is invisible for a minute.
For fuck's sake, do you not?
Well, I agree that his framing, John's framing was rather craptastic there. Okay. But still, definitely got an emotional response out of Creetosis here.
I don't know what the word context means. To prove my point as best as I can, I will now criticize Fallout 3 for something New Vegas does.
Height of sheer hypocrisy here. He tries to pull off the, the ultra own win, New Vegas is perfect. I mean, yeah, of course he will actually have criticisms, but he won't actually include it here. This line of argumentation, and he's not even fully correct. He's technically correct in theory, but I'll get into that.
But I won't criticize New Vegas for it. And after I do so, I want those of you watching this video to pause.
And the smugness of this, I want you to reflect and think about how bad Bethesda is. Bethesda's the devil. You don't want the devil taking your soul. Come to the Interplay Retro Tactical RPG of classic Fallout. Join us. No mutants. Here's a pamphlet.
For as long as you like, so you can try to figure it out on your own, before I explain why this is a totally valid position to hold.
This is condescending as all hell.
I'm not even asking for people to comment on the video to artificially drive engagement.
See, in his motivation, he's like, no, this isn't a trick. I'm not trying to trick you to comment below. I wouldn't do that. I'm a good, honest YouTuber. I'm not even sure if this is reverse psychology or if he really thinks he will receive criticism from this, because he's very defensive overall. So I understand taking criticism. You're not taking criticism for trying to get comments. You're probably taking criticism just for the smug and condescending, hypocritical nature of this.
Just consider it for yourselves. It makes no sense that there is no rain in Fallout 3, but it is fine in New Vegas. If you want to...
No, it's not. But we will see your argument, even though I know it.
Take part in this little challenge, pause now.
Skip now. Or just talk shit. Creetosis, condescending, morally.
Alright, so the thing is, many pieces of entertainment media are going to share certain elements as one another. But that doesn't mean they're going to be totally equal to each other. To give a very quick example, in the Star Wars movies, both
pulling in the Star Wars. Star Wars deserves its criticism. I agree with that. Absolutely. Star Wars deserves most criticism. How is he applying this to Fallout 3? I do not see the correlation. He's trying to create the bridge in people's mind. People who dislike Star Wars might not know much about Fallout 3, but they do know Fallout 76 is bad. I agree. Fallout 76 was crap. Totally against all what even Fallout 4 did something decent, satisfied that itch of Fallout fans. Fallout 76 did not. It was something completely different from different type of it's single player games and crap like that.
Luke Skywalker and Rey Palpatine both use the Jedi mind trick. Yet, most people are fine with the first, most people are fine with it's told, and then just politely pretend the OT is invisible. Context behind it, Luke went through training to use a mind trick, all on her own, a real thing.
Yeah, I got tired of just listening to this false equivalence
that exists.
Trying to say that Luke got training, Rey did not. She just sort of mind stole it from emo wannabe Kylo Ren. Just sort of sapped it from his brain, which is completely ridiculous and some bullshit nonsense. Not to mention, Rey was definitely the stand-in for the audience. Mary Sue by many different comparison. Luke was not. He was the hero's archetype from the start. He had to do the training. He had to get the sword. He had the wise wizard. There's so much more that Creed is not getting into. Using this singular example to make this comparison is a little weak.
All on her own.
But I do understand this. I do not understand the correlation. And I mean, if you're still there, Buzzard, do you understand the correlation between this? I mean, maybe I'll play it.
How to use the Jedi mind trick just a few hours after learning the Force is a real thing. For context behind it, you learn why it's an issue. In the OT, Luke went through training to use the Force. He wasn't a master on day one, and when he finally does use the Jedi mind trick...
Explain how they're connected. I'm gonna lead into my argument in just a minute after he's done. So if you can give me some understanding, that would be awesome. I want to understand. I might not agree, mind you.
It's in the final film of the trilogy. In the Disney trilogy, Rey figures out all on her own how to use the Jedi mind trick just a few hours after learning the Force is a real thing that exists. It isn't as simple as, both things did X, but one got criticized for it, because the deeper context surrounding these events are what matters. Now back to my Rain criticism. Why is this an issue for Fallout 3 and not New Vegas? Well, the answer to that is that the Las Vegas area in the real world hardly gets any rain on a yearly basis.
Okay. Keep in mind, this is real world. He's using real world data. I mean, normally I wouldn't have a problem with this, but when you divorce this from the fictional setting of 200 years in the future and the alternate universe and the scenario, I'll get into it in a bit.
As opposed to Washington, D.C., which receives plenty of rain yearly. Due to the extreme...
Yes, in the current environment, D.C. does get more. Okay, I live near D.C. I would know about that. I don't know the exact numbers, but that actually doesn't matter for this example.
Extremely low amount of rain Vegas gets, it wouldn't have made any sense for Obsidian to program in not only a rain weather system, but for it to only appear like 1% of the time.
And Fallout 3 had a nuclear wasteland. It's considered the DC wasteland for a reason. It got nuked the hell out of it. I tried to do some research. There's no definitive evidence that nuclear bombardment would change weather patterns. I tried to create a correlation with that. Couldn't prove anything. But in a fictional world with fictional rules, it is stated that the DC wasteland did undergo a desertification. Now, there isn't anything directly stated in the game about that. I have to go to outside information to confirm that, but I don't have to go with your Creetosis's high, lofty standards overall. Frankly, anyone who puts a restriction on your thought process when you're trying to defend or criticize anything is just trying to limit you. And Creetosis definitely does a lot of things like, you can't do this, you can't do that. I can do whatever I can if I can create an argument to defend it or to criticize it. It goes both ways. We could have a back and forth and talk about this, compare evidence, but I'm just a lowly little YouTuber who does whatever I want, who doesn't have a theme, and will probably never get many fans because I jump all around. Yeah, it absolutely does make sense why. No, Ray can use it, but she shouldn't. It's some bullshit reasons. That's not what I was talking about. Yeah, makes sense. Doesn't make. I laid out my argument. I really don't think it's a good comparison. The story actually would, in Fallout 3, you can call it bullshit if you want. The nuclear blast desertified the DC wasteland, and that's sort of obvious. But yes, it does make sense why Luke can use mind tricks, and it really doesn't make. I'll agree with that. I'm not one of these Jedi defenders, okay? I definitely, actually, I came out of Force Awakens to be like, oh, that was good, I think, but with no desire to see the next movie. I was turned off before then. You really think Creetosis wants to talk to me? He doesn't want to talk to me on Mauler's server. Trust me. And he initiated contact. I don't blame him. Strategically, there is nothing to gain to talk to me. Absolutely nothing to gain to talk to me strategically. Probably just going to make him look bad. I understand completely why he doesn't do it, but if the one time on Mauler's server when he commented on me posting my video, call me dishonest and disingenuous, I had to call him out there. I'd be like, okay, you want to call it? Prove it. Show some evidence. I mean, I would be fine with talking with him, even if he just wanted to insult me. I would throw insults back. It's all fun, as I said. But he has nothing to gain with contacting me. Completely understand. Doesn't mean I won't shit talk him, and anytime he says I'm dishonest, we just have different lines of logic.
It would have been a waste of time and resources. Fallout 3, on the other hand, came just 2 years after Oblivion, which did have rain, which...
That means Fallout New Vegas would have had more time to implement rain. Yes, they had it in Honest Hearts. So, obviously, I'm not going to defend the rain. Fallout 3 used the desertification, which fit the theme of Fallout 3. Not the greatest thing in the world, but it does work out. And I think that's the end of my argumentation.
Didn't get carried over to Fallout 3 for some reason.
Well, I'll be here Friday. Nice to see you, former buzzard. Hope you had a good time, or at least not a completely bad one, and have a good night. I'm going to try to take a nap before I have to wake up in a few hours. Night or morning.